Dauntless Stark.
Hello.
Chat, as always, let me know if the volume sounds good. I'm going to turn them down just a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to go ahead and give us your name, your pronouns, and what you're here to discuss, we can get started.
Sure. Online, I go by Dauntless or Dauntless Stark is the specific channel. I'm he, him. I've been doing YouTube for a little under a year, specifically more Let's Play content, but very, very recently I've been moving into more like the political sphere within the gaming community, and I think this is kind of like a sister branch of that because it has a lot to do with content creation in general, and I'm here to discuss, not really debate. I'm not here to be like any kind of antagonistic at all. But
Sure.
I've always wanted to discuss the rise of weaponizable parasocial relationships between content creators and fans.
Weaponizable parasocial relationships. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Because let's just be clear, there are people that do take it too far, right? Stalkers, doxers, swatters. These are all big no-nos. I'm pretty sure everyone can unanimously agree, right? No one ever wants that. Exactly, right? But people that are, more innocent are also getting a lot of backlash from this, and a lot of it, in my viewing expertise as an outsider looking in, looks a lot more like unfair to them, in my opinion.
Okay, unfair. Like, can you give me an example?
Yeah, right. So this entire sparking concept of this happened about like a year and a half ago. I tried desperately prior to this to try to find the original thing. I couldn't. It was just a VTuber that I never heard of. Literally post on Twitter a screenshot of someone literally asking them, "Hey, you seemed a little off today. Are you okay?" And from the context that was given, they were like random strangers. And this chosen VTuber went off on them, saying, "Don't do this. This isn't cool. This is creepy." When the screenshot was just them asking, "Are you okay, man?" Like, that's all that was shown. And I'm like, that's not right. That's someone being a decent human being, in my opinion. They don't deserve any kind of ounce of, receiving shit for that at all. And
Right.
also, like within,
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, within like the same ballpark, there was like the famous Ludwig video, which I'm going to deem like the catalyst for the rise of it, where he made a video called "I'm Not Your Friend," where he was actually very respectful about it, saying like, "You may know me, but I don't know you. We need to acknowledge that and don't, treat me like I'm your best friend down the street, right?" Things like that.
Right,
Like, just
right.
don't be a creep. And like, this is the kind of things that I do understand, right? But I'm not going to say any other names. Like, if it's something negative, I'm not going to mention any names. For example, just
right.
as a respect for everyone. I don't hate anyone within the context of who we're talking about here.
Okay.
It was just it's a rise and fall of just like people basically shitting on people as like a way, I think, to just like, although there could be like a myriad of reasons, it just seems like it's just a reason for people to have like fame and fortune without the responsibility to have fame and fortune, right?
I think what it kind of feels like a lesser than me type deal.
Yeah,
is what you're saying, right? Like, oh, don't touch me, peasant. Don't talk to me. Don't
precisely. I'm
gaze upon me in the improper manner.
Yeah, we are not equals. Know your place, kind of situation. And
right, I got you.
I can empathize how someone can easily get to that mindset. Doesn't excuse it though. But I feel like it's happening more and more, and this is obviously a lot more prevalent with like people that have traumatic experiences in the past, which is, I can emphasize why they would be so hesitant. And like people that are like really, really like multi-million-dollar follower subscriber people, because obviously if you're like 1,000 to like whatever 50,000, like around that ballpark, you're typically going to be pretty down to earth. At least just that I've experienced. Like, this isn't like, none of this is like a 1-to-1, right?
Right.
But it just feels like a lot more people are being like, just, yeah, a lot more
Just
like
kind of rude without really like
yeah, and I think
meaning,
it's
while
a
hiding behind the guise of like saying people are being parasocial to you.
yeah 100%, and I feel like it's really damaging because
Hmm.
not a lot of people realize that if they have a million subs or million followers over, each one of those million people is a different human being. You know, remove bots out of the equation, right? Like,
Right.
if you have a million subscribers, there's a good chance that those are a million separate people, and they each have lives, and they each have different cares, and they each have different levels of affection towards you, whether you want that affection or not. You know, and again, there are
Right.
crazies. We don't, you know, you do need to like as you, you do need to regulate that yourself, but to have the one-sided friendship, it's not inherently a bad thing. You know, just because it can be
Um,
weaponized doesn't mean that it is weaponized.
I would hesitate to call it a friendship. I mean, like I can be. I think personally that people take it a bit too far. I agree with you. Like the whole like, oh, don't be parasocial towards me. I'm not your friend. Blah 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 type deal. I think that you can form a friendship with people who watch you. It's just a little bit more complicated because there is a power dynamic, and so I think that a lot of these creators are simply being aware of that power dynamic and trying to respect it. I don't know if they're like consciously doing that, but I tried to give people the benefit of the doubt, you know, um, like because if you take it the opposite extreme where it's like, no, 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 you guys are my friends, you're very special to me, and I care about you deeply, and I like each and every one of you at home is super amazing in your own special way, which can all be true. But like you sit here and like pump this garbage out, and you're like, by the way, give me money,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. In cases like that,
like shit like that.
it does seem very hollow. Like it's obviously it's complex, but like
Hmm.
if it's like a spectrum, right? No matter what end you're on, it's very vacant in a way, right?
Hmm.
You're either too nice to the point where you seem very fake, or you're so unlikable that no one really cares about you, right? It shouldn't be like a fine line to walk on, but again, I'm feeling, you know, not necessarily as like a fellow YouTuber, not that kind of garbage. I'm still a baby channel, but just like as, you know, a consumer looking in, I've seen it more and more, you know. And it's not
How
necessarily
would
go ahead.
mhm. I was gonna say, how would you feel about the idea that like that kind of behavior will kind of naturally drive people away from the channel and it'll regulate itself?
Uh I think that would be entirely situational based off of the specific content creator we're talking about here,
Okay.
because you know if the person's bullheaded and it's like no, my content works, fuck you, like if they double down,
Mhm.
then you know they will probably fizzle out into like extinction, you know.
Right.
Or
So,
if they do have like a humble pie, then maybe, but it's entirely situational. Have I seen it
mhm.
personally? Maybe once or twice, maybe a third time, depending. You know,
Mhm.
it seems to be
Okay.
like it's not a common occurrence for sure. Not to mention, people also, uh, even if you do call it out as like shitty behavior,
Mhm.
not many content creators reciprocate it and acknowledge it to begin with. So, you know, it's like a 50-50
Uh,
whether or not if it's going to be acknowledged or not.
Acknowledge specifically the
Like
like
shitty,
the whole overblowing the parasociality thing.
yeah, yeah, because
Hmm.
it's really easy to hide behind the golden examples. Like, I don't want to be nice to because I could be doxxed, I could be swatted. Everyone will understand that, but at the same time, though, again, it's a give and take, right? Just because you
Right. Right.
can doesn't mean you're going to be. It doesn't mean you have permission to be a complete, you know, dickbag to everyone that joins your stream who has an ounce of care for you, right?
Right. I think that there are instances where it can, like, where a streamer can go too far. I guess I just lean more in the direction of, like, I've had some, not a whole lot. This doesn't happen very much, and I'm grateful for that. But I have had, like, some people, form a, I don't want to say, I don't want to say unhealthy, but like it got a little overbearing, and I can understand where that idea of like wanting to keep that thick wall of separation comes from. Ultimately, this is a job that people do. You know, like this is your career sometimes for a lot of people. Not for me. You know, I do this casually. It's
Yeah.
fine. And I can, you know, I'm friendly with some people, but I guess I empathize with the side that says, you know, am I erring too far? Like even if you're erring too far in that direction, I empathize with that because you don't want people to form unhealthy connections to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
At the
So
same time, though, if you go into a grocery
mhm.
store, just because that grocery store has been robbed in the past doesn't mean that that grocery store should meet every customer as if they are a robber.
That's fair. I guess I would ask the question, how big of a problem do you feel this is and what implications do you feel like it's having? Because I
I
personally, if you want my opinion, I don't feel like this is a huge problem.
I don't think it's at the point where it's a huge problem. I think it's
Mhm.
rising more and more, though. The trouble that
Okay.
I would have going in, obviously, because I don't know any of these people, right? I don't know
Mhm.
their experiences. I don't know the potential fucked up shit that they have encountered, which is really hard when you know, start pointing fingers. But it looks like it's becoming more and more. Are some of
Mhm.
these vindicated? Statistically, probably, absolutely. But you know,
Mhm.
um, and I'm not even like not pointing name, like again, not naming names.
Sure.
You know, if the content creator has, you know, a reputation to being unsavory, then you kind of get what you deserve in that case. Um, but
Okay.
even when it's not,
Okay.
sorry, I'm trying to accumulate thoughts here. sorry,
No, you're
sorry.
fine. Take your time. You take
Yeah,
your time.
yeah. Just, you know, I'm not hyperactive on Twitter, but I
Mhm.
do like YouTube news, right? Like, not necessarily gossip, but like what's going on, like the whole Lunchley situation. I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't on Twitter because I don't care to scroll through random news channels on YouTube, for example, shit like that. And
Okay.
I'm noticing like you see like the clips, and granted, a lot of them are out of context, but you see someone who's kind of an asshole to chat. And if I, as anyone should, delve into it deeper, it honestly it seems to be like a 50-50 of yeah, that person wanted it or that person had no reason to being an asshole to someone, you know? Like if someone said
Mhm.
in chat, you know, I'm not feeling great today, my mom died, which was a famous example a while ago, and that chatter got shit on for spreading that news, yeah, it can be kind of bummer news, but at the same time though, they're a human.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not
What
necessarily
did this streamer say in response? I'm curious because I haven't heard of
he went
this.
so t- little under about, I don't know, 8 9 months ago, like a little under a year, I want to say, could be longer, I'm not great with timestamps.
Mhm.
I completely forgot about this until just now, but this is a good example. Basically it was a regular that popped into this YouTuber, this Twitch streamer, I believe, you know, stream, and it's, oh man, hi so and so, it's been a while, how you doing? Oh, not so good, my mom passed away. He then
So
proceeded
they
to spend like the
directly
next,
addressed this.
yeah, and then
Okay.
this streamer in particular spent like the next like 10 minutes just shitting on her, saying you don't do that, you don't bring down the stream, how, you know, it's not fair to everyone here, when on an outsider looking in, it just looks like they were like just two friends talking. And I'm like, that's, and granted, he kind of got in shit for it too, in my opinion, rightfully so. He made an apology, blah blah blah,
Oh,
right?
okay. Gotcha.
um,
Yeah, yeah, I think that that's a little bit too far. I can see though, you know, if a chatter just randomly comes in and they're like, "Hey guys, I'm not doing too great. Uh, you know, like I got shit going on in my personal life." Like like if that happens a lot, after a certain point, it's like, "Okay, bud, you need therapy. You don't need to be here right now. You need to be talking to your therapist." You know, you're bringing that shit to my chat like every single day, and it's not cool. And it's frankly, it just brings the mood down when we're all just having a good time. I can kind of see that. Would you agree with that?
to an extent, yeah. Just
Sure.
note me personally, I would not try to help them, but you know, maybe be like DM me after stream if it's something I can help with. Let's see if we can do it. Like maybe I know someone that can help you, and someone that has been in the same situation. Like I would, just knowing me, not knowing this person, I would try to find common ground and try to find the closest thing to a solution. And if that doesn't work, then you have to be blunt and be like, you should maybe call the self-help line or something.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
Mhm.
in cases like that, subtlety should go out the window. I think you need bluntness, either if it's hard truths or something, right? Because
Right.
again,
Yeah.
if they're serious, you don't want to brush it aside because that could just escalate things.
But I guess I would argue it's also not your responsibility as a streamer or a content creator to like take on uh, that person's problems and make them your own.
This
You
is,
know, like
yeah,
I'm
it's
not saying
not.
that I would discount them, but it's not as though like my purpose or part of my job is my stream's trauma. You know?
It is, it's not. I wouldn't say it's fair. I would say
Mm.
that, in my opinion, it should come with the territory. Because again, whether you want to or not, people are going to like you. They're going to look up to you. Hypothetically, right? 9 times out of 10, right? If you were a likable personality on Dude, people will form an attachment towards you. And if they feel comfortable enough to sharing that for you, it could be a troll. But in the cases it's not, I feel like you have somewhat of responsibility. I understand how unfair it can be when you have, potentially hundreds of thousands of people coming to you for this. I get that. It can be
Well, right, and then you
overbearing.
make a habit of it.
Yeah. And
Right.
then
And so you make a habit of it. And so people are like, oh, this is a person who will listen to me when I have problems. And then suddenly you have an influx of like, oh my God, like, please, my mom died. I can't afford therapy. Will you please talk to me? And that can become a problem. I mean,
it
can you
can.
see
It
how that
can.
might
Yeah, no,
happen?
it can
Yeah.
snowball. So it is again, it's give and take, right?
Hmm.
People like always use the excuse where if you do it to one, you got to do it to all. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you do what you personally, individually can do. And
Hmm.
sometimes if that means you need to turn people away out the door, that's unfortunately what it has to do. But at the same time, if you, in that current stance, can deal with it the best of your ability, I think that you should.
Mm, I don't know. I'm going to push back a little bit because I think that, again, this is a job. And part of that job description is not to um, deal with the trauma of people who are watching you. Frankly, I just don't think that's the case. Like, I could, like, say that I like completely ignore that person. I don't say anything to them. Am I in the wrong?
If it's so, just
So
because
this person comes into my
just
chat.
because this is how my brain works, it would depend.
Mm,
I think it would, you would get quote unquote brownie points if it was like a busy chat and maybe you saw it for like half a second and then it goes by and 30 other people talk and you can't find that chatter anymore. I think that's 100% understandable. I don't think anyone could really fault you in that case. If it's like there's 5 people in the chat and this person keeps talking about it, then maybe you need to be treated a little bit more seriously. Kind of like do a little detective skills to see if they're actually trolling or not, which is up to your discretion. Because if, for example, someone like your audience, your streams seem fairly active, like 90% of the time, right? I haven't been to every stream, but they seem relatively active. If someone said that in your chat, and it was the same, traffic as it normally would be, what would you ignore it? Would you try to get to the bottom of it? Would you maybe be like, hey, talk to one of the mods?
I personally would say, like, let's say that this person's persistent. Like this person comes into my chat. They're like, "Hey guys, my mom just passed recently. I'm not feeling too good. Just thought I'd stop by." And I'm like, my first response would be, "Hey, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. Um, I hope you do better." Like that would be like the basically like if I don't know this person very well, that would probably be the extent of it, right?
Mm.
If this person then proceeds to say, "Yeah, I've just been like, from like what is it, stress eating, and I've been getting a lot of weight, and I just haven't been able to like do much." At that point, I might say, "Okay, well, that sounds like a thing that you should probably talk to a therapist about. Maybe get on some medication or something." And then I would move on. I would try to move on again. And if this person continues, like, Well, I just don't know because like this medication, I've tried it before and it doesn't really work out for me. And I've tried a therapist, but every therapist that I've been to doesn't really like eventually it becomes too much. And
Okay.
you have to just be like, look, I am not here to solve your problems. Okay? I can't do this for every streamer that comes knocking on my door, or not every streamer, every fan that comes knocking on my door, begging me to fix their problems for them. I just can't do it.
Could I could
Um,
I
and
could I push back? Could I ask a simple caveat to that?
sure.
You are, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you are currently practicing nurse, right?
Yes, on our end, yes.
Yes. In this situation, do you think they may be asking you because they know that information and you might share some insight so they don't have to wait through potential hours or weeks of waiting?
It's possible, and I can give an answer, but I'm not obligated to either. I'm not acting as a nurse right now.
This is fair.
I'm not on the clock as a nurse. I'm only expected to do as much as any other streamer would be expected to do. Unless I am specifically like if I were Dr. K or something. I don't know if you know about that
Yep,
guy,
I know
but
him.
he's awesome. And if I were like doing a Dr. K show, and I'm like, yeah, come on to my show, I'll give you free therapy at the and you just have to like appear in front of people. Then yeah, of course, like that's the bit, right? That's the show. But that's not anybody's obligation to do that. At a certain point, I can be like, listen, we're not talking about that right now. And if I really were being nice, and this is me being nice, understand that. Like, this is not
Yep.
part of my job.
Yep.
I would say something like, DM me after stream and I'll try to direct you to some resources.
Yeah.
But that's not my responsibility.
It's not. Uh, in my humble pie opinion, I think that because you said that it's not the norm, right, to do that. It's not like the status
Right.
quo. I'm not saying that every content creator needs to have a list of fucking professionals that they can direct towards people, but I feel like a lot more people should at least attempt that.
I think it's a question of
Because
ought versus should, ought versus like obligation.
I get that, but it's no stranger that mental health is rising. And it's no stranger that, hospitals already are either like understaffed or overworked, most likely both
Uh-huh.
90% of the time. People aren't even, and like a lot of people, at least in my knowledge, at least here in Canada, a lot of people don't even go to the hospitals for like a free checkup, right? Just because
Mhm.
a myriad of reasons. One, they have to leave the house. Two, they have to talk to potentially a stranger doctor, and they have to share all their dirty laundry with them. Like it could be think of a reason that's the reason
As
situation.
opposed to sharing the dirty laundry with me, the streamer.
Who as a viewer, for example, like I've been watching you, Alec Gunther, for like I don't know how long you've been doing it, but so let's just say like 8 years. I know more about you, even though you don't know me, or maybe you know me as a regular, right? Maybe we've had a conversation before. Maybe this is my first time chatting into a stream. Just the fact that I know you, removing the equation of that you have expertise in the medical field, I'm comfortable enough to share with you that, hey, things are not doing so well right now. And then you can have the advice to be like, all right, maybe try doing self-help. Maybe, grit your teeth and try to go to like a specialist or a physician or something.
Right.
Like in my
Um,
opinion, the bare minimum of having a 1v1 with this person. And I understand like the larger a content creator gets, the more infeasible this gets, which is why it's really challenging. And
mhm.
I do think that it's a problem, that it's becoming a rising theme, but I also at the same time 100% understand why it's become a rising thing, because it's just like, I'm sure, I don't know, someone with 100 million subs or something, I can't imagine how awful their public Discord is, or their public email gets, or their fucking Twitter account gets. At some
Yeah, no
point,
kidding.
it's just impossible to single anyone out.
Mhm.
I get that, which is why it's so frustrating and why it's not just like this should be the answer. Um, but I feel like there has to be something that this entire genre of, you say it's a job, this entire genre of profession needs to do, because like it or not, it is something that we have to deal with. And instead of shoving it to a side and basically letting anyone else deal with it, I feel like that just because we have the golden opportunity of someone liking us enough to be willing to you know peel back their shield to let us in, whether or not we wanted to or not. Unfortunately, though, I do think that somewhat of responsibility, lies on a very, like, quotations, us.
I think my responsibility as a streamer stops at, am I being like a decent role model? You know, like, am I directing people to the correct spot in order to, like, if that happens, obviously part of the job is dealing with when that happens, because it does happen, it will happen, right? And part of the job is dealing with it. The question that we're currently in contention on is how you deal with it. So I don't think that it's not the streamer's prerogative, no matter how much the person watching them likes the streamer or is willing to let them in or trusts them. That's the parasocial element right there, is that one person trusts this other person and is willing to let them in to, like, see inside of their brain and their problems and their trauma. And I, as the streamer, am not necessarily reflecting that, right? And it's also not my job to deal with that, like on a individual level, if that makes sense. So I'm not trained in that regard. I'm not trained to talk to that person in the way that they need to be talked to. I'm not trained to deal with their problems specifically. I'm not trained at all as a streamer.
Yeah.
But my responsibility ends at, this sounds like something that you should see a therapist for. And I think that that's fine. And I know that therapy is expensive, but that's a consequence of the capitalist society in which we live, not necessarily, like, that's not, it's just not my problem to deal with. It's not. And so, like, I can deal with it if I want to, you know, but then you're opening up the door to more people wanting you to solve their problems. And is it fair if you only solve this one person's problem and not everybody else's? And so that's where a lot of people kind of, like, put up that wall, and they're like, this is my line, don't cross it, and if you do, I'm going to call you out. And I don't necessarily see a problem with that. I think that some people do take it a little bit far, but I think that as far as this being like a proliferant problem in the streaming community, it's not something that I've personally seen a lot of. It's just one of those things that, like, it's case by case and situation by situation. I think asking whether or not a streamer is doing okay today is fine. You know, I think that you know, it can delve into parasociality when you say, you know, did you take your medicine this morning? You know what I mean? Like something like that. Or like we were talking about with trauma dumping. You know, the example that I gave where this person is just persistently like, oh my God, I have all these problems, this problem, this problem, that problem, that problem. It's not my problem to deal with. So I don't know. I feel like we're like kind of on different levels of how much. I think the main contention here is how much am I obligated to provide this person? I think that's where we're kind of disagreeing a little bit.
Just something doesn't really, like, I don't know how I personally feel about this statement, but it's just what my brain keeps going to. You said that it's not my problem. Okay. Mm-hmm. All due respect, what if it's too bad, so sad, and now it is your problem? You know? What if...
Can you give me an example?
Well, like, my mom died. I don't know how to deal with that. I can't go to anywhere else. I don't feel comfortable talking to anyone else. You know? You, in this hypothetical, are the only person that can realistically help this person in that person's mind, which is not something you can just easily convince them out of. You know? I think...
You either got to find a way to convince them out of that or tell them tough shit. I'm sorry. It's like at a certain point, you got to tell them tough shit.
Yeah. Well, even doing that, right? Isn't that making it your problem? You know, sometimes it's not a problem. Sometimes it is a problem.
Like, I think it's fine to just as easily ignore them, but if you want them to, like, sometimes if they're persistent enough, they'll be like, oh, well, maybe he just didn't get my message, right? And then you have people spamming, and then you have this person spamming the chat, they're spamming your inbox, they're like not leaving you alone. Now you have the choice, a justifiable decision to say, listen, I can't help you with your problem, please piss off. And you can say it nicer than that. You can be nice and say, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry that that's happening to you, but ultimately it comes down to, yeah, you need to stop doing this.
I don't know. I understand the sentiment. I do. Maybe because
It's a matter of
maybe because it hasn't happened to me. I can't relate to like, because to me that sounds very hollow. It sounds very cold, almost not. This is hyperbolic, but in a way very inhumane to treat someone who's going through strife. Is to just be like, suck it up, Buttercup. Which it's just like, okay, that's despite despite technically being true, that's like the antithesis of being helpful. If anything, that can make it worse.
I don't think that the person saying that is necessarily, it's not even just suck it up. It's I can't help you. So if you say like I can't help you and the person keeps saying like no, you need to help me, you're the only person who can, then yeah, I'm sorry. At that point it's like, well, that person already made it clear that they're not willing or able to help you and you're still bothering them with your problems. Like it does become kind of a suck it up and deal with it some other way situation. Like you don't have to be rude about it.
No,
I'm not saying be rude.
I'm not.
But if a streamer were being rude about it, then I would probably critique that streamer for being rude and say you could have handled that a little nicer. But ultimately, I would also side with the streamer and say, yeah, like they were being a little annoying, and that's your right to tell them to piss off.
I don't know if I could. If I'm being real. I don't know if I would either be like, contact me after stream, or I would try to make sure that I don't know if I have the heart to do that. I'm not jaded.
Sure, and I don't either. I like if somebody is genuinely like, listen, like let's craft a scenario, right?
Sure.
Where there is somebody who is parasocially attached to me to the point that they're like, and let's use the example of like my mom died, like my mom just died yesterday. I'm reeling from it. Look, there's this ALEC Gunther guy that I've been watching for the past few months, and I now have a parasocial connection with them, and I've been chatting in their stream every day. And I'm gonna go into their stream and say, hey, like I'm sorry, like, my like I'm not doing too good. My mom just died, and like I'm not. Let's say it's been a while, right? Like I'm not able to get over it. I'm not eating well. I'm not like I'm taking my medications. Can you please help me? Like my response would be, I can't help everybody. So I like on an individual level like that. That's not what I'm here to do. So like my response would be, I can't help everybody. And here are some resources that you can use to help you.
I think that's
and that would
sufficient.
be how I personally handle it.
I think that's perfect. I think that
somebody,
to me, that is the bare minimum though. That's the thing.
If somebody else were to say, like, I'm sorry, tough shit. Like I'm doing my job here. Like that's not what we're talking about right now. That's not my problem to deal with.
Well, I mean, you can't. Technically, like the job is customer service, and you're treating your customers like dog shit. Then it's not. No, I'm sorry. I can't agree with that. I think your example of just imagine DMing them the self-help line, I don't know what it is.
Imagine you go
suicide
to the pet
line.
store. Imagine you go to the pet store and you form a very close connection to the guy running the counter at the pet store, right? And you're like, all you do is you go there, you buy your pet food, you check out, and sometimes you start like a little conversation with them, right? And you're getting way more connected to this guy than you should be because you don't have any friends. Let's just say you don't have any friends. You're getting way more connected to this guy than you should be. Suddenly, your mom dies, right? And you go up to this guy and say, yeah, my mom just died. I don't really have anybody else to talk to. And like, I just thought that maybe since we've been talking for a little bit, like you could help me out. Do you feel like this person who's just doing their job and their perspective is that they were just doing their job by being cordial to you? Do you think that person is then obligated to take on that responsibility and say, and help them in any way?
As part of their job, no. As a human being, possibly.
I just think it's a matter of they don't have the tools and they're not there to help that.
But what if the only tool you need is to just have an ear?
It's still not your job. Like your job at the pet store is running the pet store. It's not dealing with your customers' trauma. My job as a streamer is to stream entertaining content. It's not dealing with people's trauma. Like, it comes up, you know, part of being a streamer is that people will form parasocial connections to you, but my job is not dealing with the trauma. Like, I would go as far as to say directing them to a safe place, and that's about it. Like, I'd be willing to accept that.
Yeah, I would too. Again, something as simple as, like, if they need to, send them the self-help line or something, you know, like maybe you weren't aware, here's this person, or you can also talk to X profession, you know. I think that is the bare minimum, but being like, it's not in the job description, go away. Come on, like, it's very anti-human.
I just think
it's so anti-human, dude.
If that is your personality as a streamer, you're just going to maybe not. I could be wrong on this because there are a bunch of I guess I am wrong on this because there are a bunch of disgusting personalities that nonetheless get huge on Twitch and YouTube and whatever. But like, I don't know. My feeling is if you like go to somebody like Sneeko for help, it's like at that point, like I don't know how bad I can feel for you thinking like if you think that Sneeko would actually help you solve your problems.
I mean, if we do, like, I consider that like an extreme, even though I assume he does because he's in that whole era of I know, quote unquote, what's best for men, quote unquote, you know. So I'm sure he actually unironically does get like comments and DMs and shit like that, which unfortunate. I could try to make the argument that he is technically helping them, maybe not for the betterment of society, but he's helping them on an individual level, you know. Whether or not we agree with his politics, he's still, you know, he doesn't matter if it's a 1% chance, it doesn't matter if it's a 30% chance. Yeah, he could potentially help someone from leaning over the ledge.
But my point is, it's not his job to do that.
Who determines that? Like,
because
why not make that your job? He's an influencer. It's his job to be watched and appreciated and to be discovered by random people. It is your job to help people or to like make people happy in some way. You keep saying that it's not your. Sorry.
It's okay.
You keep saying
you finish.
Thank you. Sorry. I need to get this out.
It's okay.
You keep saying that it's not my job to help these people, right? I don't know if that's an exact quote. I'm sorry, but you keep coming back to that.
I would stand by that.
And I think that maybe it should be added into the description. You know, I'm not saying every fucking content creator needs to have like a 6-hour course on how to deal with mental health. I think that every content creator at least should be able to know how to copy and paste the self-help line, post it in chat, post it to a DM, literally doing the bare minimum. But just shrugging it off and be like, basically saying, you say that you're suicidal in an extreme example. You say you're suicidal, and someone just goes, "Not my fucking job, bro," and move on. In my opinion, your callousness condemned that person to die, because in that situation, you could have ridden them off the ledge, and you made the distinct decision not to do anything about it. To me, that is inhumane.
Let's take this to its natural extreme.
When the potential answer, the bare minimum, is as simple as Control-Z, Control-V to solve it, there is no excuse not to attempt that. Anything past that, I can kind of understand the situation because that is very heavy shit. But if you can't do the simple 2-finger Control-V, Control-C method, I don't think there's any redemption for that. I think that is less than bare minimum.
Okay, let's say, like, I was literally going to bring up this example before you did. Let's take this to its natural extreme and say that there is a person who comes to you and says, I don't have anybody else. I feel like if I can't get help from you, then I am going to kill myself.
Okay.
Right?
Already.
Like, I am going to commit suicide if I cannot get help from you. All right?
Sorry, I have an answer, but I'm getting ahead of yourself, so finish, please.
Sure. Your response, right, is, let's just say that you paste that helpline thing, right? Copy paste the helpline. Say, there you go. Sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah.
And that next day, you find out somehow that that person killed themselves. Is that your fault?
No, because I did the only
Right, but
thing
it was
within
your,
my
but it's your
expertise to
job.
help.
But according to you, part of your job as a streamer is like the mental health of your fans.
Which I did by giving them the
Right. So one
most
of your fans
core.
killed themselves, so it's your fault. They reached out to you for help, and you didn't help them sufficiently. So that's your fault because
I
it's your
helped them to
job
the
take
best
care
of my
their mental
abilities.
health.
I didn't shrug them off saying it's not my job.
No, you didn't. You could have done way more. All you did was copy paste the
How do we
the
know
mental
that?
health
I have
suicide
no
hotline.
expertise. I know what the
It's not a matter
suicide.
of expertise.
I know the suicide prevention line. That's the only thing I know.
Right.
That's the only reckonal of information I know about mental health. That's the only thing
You
I
couldn't
know.
have just said what's wrong. Let's talk. You know, like you could have done way more. Like, do you
Oh,
see
I
where
mean,
this kind of leads?
if we're bringing that into it, yeah, me personally, I would try to get to the bottom of it, which I've been saying this entire time. But I was speaking as if in the place of just like ISO Speed or Ludwig, someone who probably I don't know them, but let's just say that they don't want to build that connection to someone who can only do the bare minimum. You know, either they don't have like the intelligence, not to throw any shade, but they don't have the resources to fully help this person, and they are aware of that. The bare minimum is to direct them to a location or to a situation where they can help themselves. And if that doesn't come back, and they come back the next day being like, I tried this, it didn't work, then you would try to integrate them. Hey, talk to some people in the community, into the Discord, you know, maybe not try to be so doom and gloom, but everyone here kind of has like the similar tastes. Maybe you might make a friend or two, you know?
First of all, I wouldn't do that. I would say you probably need to get checked into a mental health hospital or something. Second off, I would say, like, if somebody were to DM me and say, listen, I love your content, I've been having these issues, I feel like I can't go with anybody else, I can't afford therapy, I think I'm going to kill myself. I have every right to simply ignore that message. There's nothing wrong if I just ignore that message.
Okay, well,
Because
let's do
my job to help that person.
Let's do an Uno reverse. If you shrug someone off and then you get news that they actually performed suicide, does that not affect you? Knowing that you did nothing about it?
But I can sleep well at night knowing that that was not my fault. I did not cause that person to do that.
Even though you did absolutely nothing. You literally said, not my job, not
I did nothing. It's not my job. I'm not getting involved. I don't know this person. I don't know them. You know, for all I know, they could be trying to scam me. Like, I have no idea.
I don't recommend giving them an email. Discord is sufficient enough. It's public for you in this case.
But that's how it starts sometimes. They start with something like that to draw you in, to get close to you.
Well, I mean, then it's viewers then it's viewers' discretion, right? You know, if someone gives you bad vibes, at any point it's okay to cut the conversation as long as you, at the bare minimum, direct them to people that can help them way more than you can. You know, that's why I keep going back. Suicide prevention line or the self-help. Again, Canada, I don't know if it's any different from America, but in Canada we have the suicide prevention line.
I personally would do that.
Yes.
I personally would do that because I feel that that is a good thing to do to help that person.
Precisely.
Okay? But
all I'm saying is that that's the bare minimum. I think that everyone should do that because that is the simplest thing to do.
But if I choose not to, it's not my fault. Whatever happens from that point on is not my fault.
And I agree with that statement. But if you don't give them any sort of help, if you just completely dismiss them, you completely ignore them, you walk by them, you ignore them, then I do think that not 100% of that responsibility, but some of that responsibility kind of falls on you for just completely ignoring a human being in need. You can call you can call it unrealistic, but it's truly how I feel. You know, I do think that more people need to help more people, and I'm not talking about like charity, like just simple as that, just pointing in a direction of where they can get the help they need. You know, what they do with that information is up to them. But you know, pardon me. But in this, like, you know, there's different variables. What if for some reason they don't know that line exists? Or what if they are too anxious and they just need a little motivation? Like, there could be 1,000 fucking variables that go into why they didn't go there in the first place. And I think that at the bare minimum, it's someone's responsibility to be like, go there, you know? It can help you. It will help you, you know?
So then at what size as a YouTuber can I say that's no longer my responsibility because I get like 20 messages like that every day?
Yeah, that is hard.
Exactly.
The cynic
So I
can
just
the
say it's not their
cynic can so
responsibility.
the
It's very
cynic
simple, cut and dry.
so the truthfully, if you want an honest answer that I think would be the easiest, would be have a bot command that gives the self-help line. Someone can be like, I'm not doing too hot, Sheev. Anyone in chat can do ! self-help or something, and then whoop, the bot comes up and be like, hey, are you feeling low? Here, try this line, shit like that. That I think is, from what I can tell, a very simple way. Or you can also promote it. You can have it in the description. I think that there just needs to be more, right?
And while that would be good to do, and there ought to be that more of that, that should be an incentivized behavior. I agree with that. But I don't think that it's necessarily the person's job to do that.
I think that it should be added to their job because, again, it's so simple that, in my opinion, there's no reasonable execution as to why it shouldn't happen. To get a bot set up, to get, just to copy paste into a fucking notebook to have on your desktop to just simply attain it at any point, right? Like, yes, there can be people there. What? Sorry?
I don't have that bot.
Would it be hard to set it up if you wanted to?
Not entirely, no.
Precisely.
I mean, now that we're having this conversation, I might just set it up, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but
I'm glad I could help.
I don't.
But
right, exactly.
It's at most.
I don't think that it's a person's job to do that. I don't think that's part of the job description. I don't blame a person for not doing it. I just don't think it's part of their job.
At most, it could be like an hour of setups to have for the rest of your potential online career. I think there's no contest into why that shouldn't happen.
Because otherwise you could make an argument for holding a person accountable if they don't do that. And I don't agree with that.
But
how would you even begin to reprimand that person?
Reprimand how so? In what situation would someone be reprimanded?
Like, let's say that you don't have a hotkey to find the suicide help hotline, and the person comes into your chat and they say, hey, well, no, but you're saying set up, like, it's my responsibility as a streamer to set up the command.
If they're large enough,
right? And
if you're large enough,
okay,
then you have mods that you or someone that can set up a bot to set that up, which again takes within an hour, easy. I don't know the full specifics. I've never set up a bot myself, but
if somebody comes into my chat and says, I feel like I'm going to, in whatever chat appropriate way, I'm feeling suicidal. I feel like I'm going to kill myself if something doesn't give or something doesn't happen or I don't get help from somebody. Then if that person does end up killing themselves, no matter what I do, unless I literally am like encouraging them, obviously there's a line. If I'm encouraging them, then that's different. But if I'm just saying like, I can't deal with this right now, it's not my fault. Whatever happens from that point, it's not. It's no responsibility falls on me as the content creator.
I agree with that, so long as what's previously discussed, if you at least pointed them in a direction into where they can get help.
I don't even think that's part of, like, I think you should. I think that in a moral sense, that is the good thing and correct thing to do.
So then why would you more or less defend someone for not doing it when it's just like, go here? You don't even have to. You can just say, hey, maybe go to a self-help line or just go to the suicide prevention line instead. Why that's free. That costs even less than moving your fingers to do Control V to copy and paste on a keyboard.
Because any dummy can just hop on YouTube and start streaming, and if they don't know to do that, I'm not going to necessarily hold them accountable for not knowing.
Okay, devil's advocate. What fucking moron doesn't know that, hey, maybe you should not do that? Maybe there are ways, like, what? Unless you're a child, what dummy doesn't know that the suicide prevention exists?
It's not a matter of like knowing that or not. It's a matter of I'm not equipped to handle that. You need to seek help elsewhere.
Yes, that's on.
And if you don't
say that, that's the same thing as giving them the suicide prevention line.
And if they persist, you can then reasonably say, piss off. I told you, I can't help you. And I don't think that it's that person's fault if the fan proceeds to then off themselves. I don't think it's their fault.
We're going
like if they say, "Oh my God, you were my last hope."
Yeah, we're going around.
And now I'm going to jump off the roof. Like, it's not your fault if they do that.
We're going around in circles a little bit here, but I agree with you so long as there has been any amount of communication pointing out that, hey, I cannot help you verbally, through text, fucking through PNG, I don't care, you know? I can't help you. You should try here. You should try the suicide line. You should try the helpline. You should try seeking therapy. As long as any amount of communication that indicates that sentiment is spoken to them, then I agree. But I do think that communicating that to that person, that in this individual, is and should be the bare minimum. Even if you are not mentally stable, or like if you don't have the mental enough to mentally deal with someone feeling that distress and then going towards you, I still think that no matter what, it's your responsibility to at least communicate, to direct them to a place or location that can. And if you can't do that, then I'm sorry, but I don't think that you are equipped. I don't think you have thick enough skin, period, to be on the internet. Because if you can't handle someone who's in distress, how can you handle someone that's angry at you? Hypothetically, right? If you cannot handle that, which will happen eventually, statistically it will happen to any content creator that gets large, maybe you don't belong to streaming or online.
I can see where you're coming from, but the job description is to entertain. That's the job description. I don't think that every single, for instance, I don't think I would, would you hold a radio host to the same standard as somebody mentioned in chat? Like, would you hold a radio host to that same standard?
Yes, absolutely.
Like if somebody called into the radio host,
yes,
and said
a radio host is just a streamer, but purely audio.
Right, exactly.
It's the same thing. Yes, absolutely. I would condemn them if they didn't. In fact, they're under more pressure to do it because it's a more, quote unquote, professional institution.
But once again, it's not their job to direct that person to an appropriate location. It's not part of their job description. Like if they just say,
I think that's tough tits. I think it is now.
We don't deal with that here. On the radio show, we don't deal with that here. I don't think if they say we don't deal with that here, I'm sorry, goodbye, that person should then be held liable if the caller went and killed themselves. That's my main concern, is holding the person liable, because once you say that it's my responsibility to direct a person to an appropriate location for suicidal thoughts, once you say that that's my responsibility, you are saying that if I don't do that, then I can be punished for it. That I can be held accountable if anything happens to that person. And I don't like that.
But you're speaking as if it's like hard.
I'm not saying it's hard.
No, exactly.
I'm not saying it's hard.
So I mean, you're defending it. You're defending it as if it is, as if it's not the simplest fucking thing, the bare minimum that we have pre-established in this conversation. I just don't want
anybody. But then you immediately establish a precedent of now it's your responsibility to ensure that people who call into your program and are suicidal get the help that they need. Now you're pushing responsibility for that person onto a radio host or a streamer, and I don't like that.
But I don't like just being as cold to be like, go away when someone is like that. Yeah, and I don't think this goes into the overall theme of what I'm experiencing, or like not what I'm experiencing, but like just people just viewing viewers as like objects and not actual people. It's not a good thing. Who the fuck cares if it's in your job description?
Well, it's not
you do it because it's the good thing to do.
It's about what this show does, right? And what the where the responsibility lies for that person's behavior. And the responsibility for that person's behavior, short of the radio host literally saying, yeah, go ahead and do it. Obviously that's different. But if the radio show host just says, listen, I can't help you, go away, I don't think whatever happens to that person is the responsibility of the radio host. And I think it'd be silly to say otherwise.
In the same sentence of I can't help you, go away, you can easily say you should seek someone who can help. It's literally the same sentence.
You could, but if you don't, I don't think you should get in trouble for that.
Okay, so if we're talking about legality, I don't think you should get in legal trouble for it either. But I think that you should be societally condemned because it's a shitty thing to do, which I know is completely different.
Okay, that much I can understand.
It just dawned on me. I'm not talking about legality here. No one should be fined. No one should be put to jail. But as morality, as being a good human being, I think that it should be the norm. Because the fact that it's not is potentially condemning people to die. Whether or not if it's on anyone's fault or not. Because the solution to it can be as easy as, I can't help you, but this person can. Or I can't help you, but this place can. Or I can't help you, but this number can.
I think morally it is a good thing to do. I will agree with you on that. I just am concerned about how much responsibility we're putting on the creator. That's all.
Like it or not, creators have... I will agree. Like it or not, whether someone who doesn't want responsibility or not, if you are a big content creator in general, you have responsibility, regardless if you claim to do or not, you know? If you have, I would argue, I don't know, 1,000 subs, I think that you do have some responsibility, because like or not, people listen to you. And if you don't have, you know, some good opinions, and some people agree with those not so good opinions, I think that's your responsibility that they have those opinions now, and vice versa. Whether you care or respect it or not, people do have that power in not only content creation, but any kind of job that makes them be seen and viewed by lots of people, right? So this would go with the same thing with like Tucker Carlson or Piers Morgan, right? They're not content creators in the sense like you are a content creator, but they still have the responsibility of people listening to them. Granted, those guys are specifically political, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Gordon Ramsay then, for example, right?
Sure.
Whether you think that it's right or not, it doesn't matter. They have influence over people.
Sure.
Whether they care or whether they want it or not, it doesn't matter. They have influence over people.
Sure.
So you can't just decide that it's, you know, you have it.
If you're not influencing directly the person to kill themselves or harm themselves, let's say, like, or commit some other atrocious act, you know, like, you can draw a through line between, like, let's say, Libs of TikTok, for instance, an influencer on Twitter, right?
Yes.
You know, you can draw a clear A to B of Libs of TikTok's posts and her behavior, and then the behavior of her fans when they send bomb threats to children's hospitals because they're performing gender-affirming surgeries.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
deplorable.
You can draw that. That's stochastic terrorism, right?
Yes.
Because the root of the problem, the root of the behavioral pattern, is coming from that influencer.
Yes.
Right. So the root of a person the root of a person's behavior, if they're coming to you as a result of other influences in their life, saying, I don't have anybody else, please help me or I'm going to hurt myself. The root of that problem is not the streamer. Does that make sense? So like,
to an extent, yeah.
Right. So it is not then incumbent upon the streamer to say, here is how you can fix that, or here is where you should go, or, you know, like, yes, I will help you with this specifically. I think that it would behoove them to have I agree with you morally that it would behoove them to have a good answer for that when it happens, because it will, you know, and you can say, like, listen, I don't have the capacity to deal with this. It's not my cup of tea. It's not what I do. That's not my job. So here is where you can go in order to receive help. And I think we agree on that. But I still don't think, like, I don't know. I agree to some extent that a person should be, like, socially reprimanded if they're treating a person who is suicidal like a piece of shit. I agree with that. But I guess, like, I don't... There's a blurry line between... There's a blurry line because I don't want to push the responsibility of somebody's, like, behaviors because of outside factors onto a streamer just because that streamer decided not to help them with a mental problem that's completely unrelated to them.
But outside factors affect you no matter what, though, especially if you're in content creation. You know, you see something wrong, even if it's completely accidental. Like, say a slur falls out of your mouth, not accidental. That's not who you are. You're not a racist. You still have to deal with the repercussions of it. You know, someone outside can say something that's not true about you. No idea who you are, but you still have to deal with the repercussions of it. Whether you want to or not, outside influence does affect you no matter what.
Right, but I'm not directly telling that person or encouraging that person to proceed with harming themselves. Unless I'm doing that, I just don't think that that person should be like the streamer should be held responsible
Okay, let
for
me let me
the
ask you
viewer's
let me ask you a
actions.
different question. So,
Sure,
or let me rearrange the question. Sorry.
sure.
So, you don't think that? Sorry, can you? I just had the thought and I lost it. Could you do me a favor? Could you
Take
just
your time.
if you can you just repeat what you just said? I had a thought and I completely just lost it.
What did I just say?
I'm sorry.
ADHD. No, it's okay. My point that I was making was, it is not my responsibility to, because we were talking about the influence that streamers have over their audience, and if an audience member comes to, like there are outside factors in that person's life that are causing them stress, and it's not my job to fix that or even necessarily to direct them to the right spot. I think you should be able to, but that's an ought thing, not a moral. I don't think that it's like an obligation that you have. It's a moral ought, not an obligation. Like, should you be able to do that? Yes, but I don't think that if a person proceeds to harm themselves because you did not help them at all, that falls on you as a content creator.
Only in the case where you do nothing, I think it does. Again, going. I know we're going on circles, but if you brush them aside, like you give them nothing, and something bad happens to them, again, I'm not saying that it's all on you. You know,
But
sometimes
you wouldn't
it's
expect this of any other job. You like a car mechanic or a pet store owner or
so
like
so
anything.
so
Like you
so. I
wouldn't expect
mean,
that of them.
in a way, I would, but like again, I'm confused why you're bringing it in on a professional level. I know that streaming is a job to a lot of people, but like if you go to a
Mhm.
random cashier and you just say I need help. Okay, for example, let's just remove the parasocial aspect of this. Say there's two complete strangers. I need help. I'm not doing so good. Can you help me? Can you direct me in some way? They do
Right.
nothing. They can. I still think the same responsibility kind of lies on them to at least get an
I
answer.
disagree. I disagree. Like you going to a random cashier and saying, "Listen, I need help." If that cashier says, "Tough shit, I got my own problems," then it's not the cashier's fault. Whatever happens after that.
I don't know, man. I mean, okay, it is situational. I'll give you that. Situation, it does matter what happens in a certain situation or not. But at the same time, though, I don't think I can agree with just completely just. I don't know.
Here's
My
where I
brain,
think
my
we agree.
brain's my brain is coming up with harsher things than it actually is. But other than that, it's a very hollow thing to do. It's a very
I agree with that.
it's not inhumane, but it's a very non-human thing to do, which is why the spark of the conversation is that I think that it's becoming more and more of a thing, especially with content creation, just people being very hollow to especially their fans. You know,
I maintain that it's your right to be hollow with your fans if you want. Like it's not. I wouldn't personally do that, and this is not speaking to like the responsibility you have to your fans to not encourage them to do things that would harm them. Um, like you still have certain responsibilities as an influencer because that's your job as being an influencer, right? I'm acting as an influencer right now, so you should be influencing your fans. Uh, to in good ways rather than like, or at least in neutral ways. Like if you're just an entertainer, like Game Grumps or Oni Plays or something, they're just funny boys, right?
yeah.
But
Although, as a caveat, the
not
Game Grumps,
encouraging.
As a caveat, the Game Grumps have done many charity streams to deal with mental health. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, sure. But as a job, their job description is entertainer, not necessarily influencer, although they also behave as that as well.
Yeah.
So like as long as they're keeping it neutral and saying like, not encouraging people to hurt themselves or other people, um, because they have such influence and they're held in such high regard by a lot of people. Um, as long as they're not doing that, I just don't think that it's incumbent upon them to help somebody who comes to their inbox and says, like, I need help. It's not their job. And I don't, and like you said earlier, like you don't have a fine line or you don't have a finite line where it doesn't like we were talking about the size of influencers and how if an influencer gets too big, it's simply infeasible to help everybody who comes knocking at their door.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's just simply not that person's job. It's not the influencer's job. I just think that that's a good line to draw. And then you can talk about like, well, ought you to have resources that the person can seek if they're having those issues? Yeah, sure, of course, I agree with that, and I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
It's a good ought,
Yeah, but
not a necessity.
So I think the biggest thing that we disagree on is because, going back to like it's not in the job description and stuff like that. If the solution would require like years and years of experience, then yeah, maybe I wouldn't even be having this conversation. But again, going all the way back to the bare minimum,
Sure.
which is realistic across the board. I don't believe for a second that no one couldn't do the bare minimum under any situation. Right?
Sure.
Yes. Replying to specific DMs when you have thousands potentially coming in isn't feasible. But at the same time, then the next responsibility you have, in my opinion, is to get a banner, a bot, moderators in chat that just, that help push the bot, a fucking, like, especially in like some of the more high in-depth streamers that have like the pop-ups and stuff. I don't know. I don't know how it works myself, but like, just like, hey, you're not alone. Self-help line, just every 4 hours or something. I think that because doing that would require so little of your time and could potentially have such a massive impact that I don't think that there's any excuse not to do it. I don't think there's any excuse not to do it. There's no excuse that Kai Cenat or Tim the Tatman couldn't do it. Yes, they do not tackle mental health on their channels. I am pretty sure they are variety or they're a gaming channel, right? It doesn't matter. I think doing that alone requires almost no effort. Even if you're small and something that happens, doing the bare minimum, it literally takes 5 minutes. And if it goes past that, then it's to your own discretion, which I agree with on that part. But you need to have the bare minimum. Other than that, I don't think that it's socially acceptable, period. Because we're treating people not as humans, but we're treating them like a sick dog. Like, get away from me, like a stray. Like, go home. This isn't the place for you. And
I can see where you're coming from.
It's the reason why I'm like I came on here, and the reason why I've been wanting to talk about it is because yes, it may not be like as prevalent as I may be talking about it as if it is. Sorry, that was a really confusing way to say it. It may not be as prevalent as how dire I'm making it, but the potential fallout is so dire that it needs to be talked about. It needs to be taken seriously, right? And it is good to talk about like the more finer details, like when is it too much, stuff like that. And then it, like, for example, the creating the bot thing. I don't know any expertise in how it goes into making a bot, but I know that bots are relatively easier to make for someone who knows how to do it. To the point where, like, I don't think there's any excuse not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because one more thing. The consequences of people doing nothing. Because if given the option, more people will do nothing than do something, right? Because people are lazy.
Right, and I don't think they should be reprimanded for that.
I don't think they should be fined. But I think people should be like, hey, this person may not care as much as people should care.
We would agree with you should foster a mentally positive community. I think that is a good ought, right? You ought to do that. My line is drawn when you start saying it is the responsibility of this, like whatever happens to a streamer's fans is their responsibility. Like in some ways, sure, you can make like arguments for certain cases. Like if I were to encourage my audience to hurt themselves, obviously it would be my fault, and I could be held like morally, legally, socially accountable for that, and should be. But short of that, like if I'm just being a funny boy on the internet, doing my thing, and I just happen to not have like a suicide hotline thing like command on my page, I don't think that's worthy of reprimanding the person. I think you should encourage the person to have it, sure, if you want to say that, and foster mentally healthy communities. But I just think that, after a certain point, it does become too parasocial, and it's not my job to deal with it. And I think it's fine to say that.
I'm just looking at
I understand it's like a weird line to draw, but
Yeah,
there is a line.
I don't like the dismissive part of it. I'm also starting to look at some of your chat to see some third party perspectives. But it's just like some of the chats, right? I don't know what it's like to quote unquote take care of a help leech, right? Which is why I'm down with, as long as you did the bare minimum. Anything past that, if they're overbearing, if they're being too much, or if they're being a troll, if you don't think they're being real, right? Then I think that all is fair, so long as you took that first step. Because granted, yeah, there could be situations where, like, no matter what, you can't win, even though it's not a win or lose situation, right? Oh, he tried, but he couldn't save this person. I get that, and it's not fair. But it's also, like, not fair for a lot of people in that situation, and so you kind of just have to deal with it. I think that just being dismissive and just ignoring it altogether is just not going to solve the problem. I think it's not even sweeping the problem under the rug. I think it's just going to fester and it's going to explode, and when it does, it's going to be way bigger of a problem than it has ever been before. It's already a bigger problem. As the years go by, mental health has already, I think, skyrocketed, right? This isn't helping that at all.
I think the better thing to focus on is just if mental health is a big issue for you, I think the better thing to focus on.
I think specifically it's the dismissiveness of mental illness that's the problem with me. I think that there's lots of advancements in taking care of yourself, but I think that people either that are in denial that they have it, or people that are denying other people that have it, I think that's the bigger problem.
I think the solution would be more societal. Like, I feel like you're putting a lot of responsibility on, like, individual streamers. You know what I mean? Like, if this is an issue that you're passionate about, I feel like the solution would be, go societal with it. Talk about how mental health in the United States is abysmal because nobody can fucking afford a therapist. And don't, like, then, if somebody is, like, going to a streamer saying, if you don't help me, I'm going to kill myself. And the streamer doesn't provide them any resources. My first go-to wouldn't be to say that streamer did something wrong. My go-to would be, our system is fucked up. That's where I would put my focus, I guess.
I can understand. I can understand that. Sorry, I can understand that to the extent that someone didn't feel comfortable enough to go to a doctor, like a trained professional. Because I don't have the mindset of America. Canada, we have free healthcare. Getting a checkup, for example, you just got to book it and then you can go, right? There's no charge there, if only, right? If only. But still, people don't go to the goddamn doctor. Why? Because you're telling a stranger all your dark secrets for the most part, right? How many times have I had sex? How many times did I ever get any STDs? You have to tell a stranger potentially your entire dark past. What if you're like a recovering addict and you don't want anyone to know that, right? It can be icky sometimes. So I do agree that it's a continue. It's a
parasocial nature comes in.
It's a continual, yeah. But again, right?
That's where the parasocial nature comes in because the streamer technically is a stranger to you. Not
well, vice versa. Because vice versa. Oh, sorry. No, you were right. Sorry. Yes.
Because the streamer is a stranger to you. You've never met them. Like, you don't really know them. You might know them in some ways, but, like, you don't have a personal connection with them. So, like, it's like that is parasocial right there.
Yes.
To say, like, I wouldn't see a therapist, but I would talk to my favorite streamy boy.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem. And the root of that problem...
I don't know if it's a problem. For example, like, if you said, like, oh, I can't wait to go to the barbecue Friday. I'm going to have all the hot dogs and burgers I can have. And then Monday comes along and someone in your chat says, how is that barbecue king? I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing at all. That you decided to share someone and then someone revisits the shared thing that you had. But take that for anything personal that someone made public, intentionally public, by the way, not docs, because again, that is the difference. You know, if someone shares something with you and then a chatter comes in and like brings the thing that you made public up to the face, I don't think that's parasocial. I mean, technically, by definition, it's parasocial, but it should not be reprimanded in whatsoever, like any way.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
If it's weaponized, again, like if it's weaponized, if it's used as like an insult, then yeah, like no shit. But if it's just like a comment, you know, like you know,
yeah,
get that barbecue. In no way whatsoever is that a condemnable action.
No, I agree with that. I do agree with that. I do think that some streamers take it a bit too far. And I think we both agree that there are limits to what you should do to
absolutely,
as
right?
far as like, and what you should say to a streamer and things like that.
Yeah, because the extremes that
I guess
people go to immediately, and one of the reasons that like Ludwig or like CDog VA made the videos like "I'm not your friend" quote videos is because, you know, some people track them down IRL during a stream and shit. And it's like, no, I don't agree with that at all. Obviously, right? That's stalking or like doxing or swatting. These things can kill people. No shit. Like, I'm not for that. It's like it's the innocent man in the equation that is getting just the shit out of the stick. And, you know, I don't think that's necessarily like I don't think it's reasonable. It's not fair, but not a lot of things are, but like I don't think it's within reason. The only caveat is if someone has
it's their right to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's your right to say hateful shit, but that doesn't mean that there's not consequences for those actions. You know?
But like you can like the consequences that like you get put on live stream fails. I think that's enough.
People still watch those?
Yeah, I guess I don't personally, but like I think that's enough of a consequence personally. I just don't see what else you would do in that situation.
I mean, I do think that the punishment should fit the crime. Do I think that everyone on Twitter should see you fuck up? Not necessarily. Not if it's unless it's like egregious where people should have the responsibility to know, in my opinion. But like if you're dismissive one time, then no, not really. Mm-hmm. If it's a recurring pattern, then maybe. Like, again, it's situational, right? Again, there's never going to be like a one-to-one. There's never going to be a finite line for something like this, right? I don't think people should be legally condemned. But going back to, like, for example, Dr. Disrespect's whole example, just because it's not legally condemnable doesn't mean that it's not societally condemnable, you know? Those are two very distinct factions, and I think that they are important. And I think that this needs to be more important in general, right? Which again, it's not an easy line to toe. I know it's another fucking slice of the bullshit pie that people have to deal with that have a following. I know it's not fair at all, but just because it's not fair doesn't mean that I think that anyone has the right to just ignore it.
I will agree with you that we should attempt to foster good communication and healthy relationships between streamer and fan. I think that that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on that. So I think that some of our differences here are mostly like surface level.
For the most part, yeah.
I guess
like the finite, like the details.
Yeah. It's the details, really. I think it's just a matter of how much responsibility falls onto the influencer if somebody's in crisis, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's, and we can agree to disagree on a certain aspect of that. But I think for the most part, we are in agreement that, like, yeah, you know, in general, you should be trying to foster like these healthy relationships with your chat, with your fans. And, you know, if you can, like, help them in ways that you're able, and, you know, make sure that they have good resources available to them if they are in crisis. I agree with all of that. I am going to go ahead and call it right here.
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead and shout yourself out real quick, I can like pull up your YouTube channel if you'd like.
Sure. That'd be more than awesome, dude. Dauntless Stark. It should just be Dauntless Stark with the same Discord avatar for the channel name. I do mainly Let's Plays. I do daily videos, daily Let's Plays. I stream somewhat daily. I think I take like 2 to 3 days off of the week, just depending on how like IRL schedules go. I mainly stream Heroes of the Storm plus whatever stream game we got going on, which is in my Discord poll or whatever. And again, I'm taking a little bit more into an active interest in politics, specifically into the gaming sphere, because I kind of want my channel to be more about gaming. I consider this to be part of that sphere because a lot of content creation is about gaming, a good chunk of it. And also, I think that it's really important. For example, tomorrow I have a video coming out where I talk about how I don't think that there's really any wokeness in games because 90% of it's optional. And if it's optional, you don't have to engage with it. And if you don't have to engage with it, it's not there. You know, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
the wokeness in gaming crowd has been going nuts lately.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I think that if you can avoid it, it's not there. For example, so I don't think there's specifically in AAA games. If you can avoid it, I don't think that it's mandatory. And by making it not mandatory, it shouldn't exist.
I would consider, and I wouldn't personally make this argument, but I would consider the argument of, well, what if there was a Nazi or a Nazi option? You can put a Nazi patch on your arm.
There is. It's called Call of Duty. Right? It's called Call of Duty or Black Ops. Like Battlefield, where you can literally play as Nazis. So I mean, it's not woke or not. Like you don't not really. Like for example, Concord didn't die because it was woke. Concord died because it was a bad game. You didn't get a damage buff if you pronounced the pronouns correctly. Like it's not woke, right? Exactly.
Awesome.
It would be pretty cool.
Love that buff.
You know, like the people are bitching about the new Dragon Age game that's coming out because one of the reasons they're bitching about it is because in the character creation you can have top surgery scars. I don't think that's fucking prevalent to the story. It's completely optional. I don't think the story is going to be about a trans individual going through the lands of Dragon Age. Like I think it's completely.
And if it were, then who cares?
I mean, but I think the possibility of that's pretty low, right? Cyberpunk is another great example. You can be a trans man. You can have any mixed match of genitalia to personality you want. It has zero effect on the game. Is that woke? By today's definition, yes. But woke just means whatever people want for a condemning factor. Yep. That's mainly what tomorrow's video is going to be about. But it's just going to be like a VOD. It's not like a full production video. If it does well, then I already have a script laid out to make it a full production video. As you can see, I'm still like an itty bitty little channel. I keep trying to keep doing it. Also, another thing too, this is not channel related, not really, but during this month of October and probably next month too, because I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm doing free commissions. All you have to do is you don't have to subscribe, you don't have to comment, none of that. You just got to talk to me on Discord. Tell me what you want, I'll draw it. I'll make a speed paint for you too. I use speed paints. Awesome. I use all the speed paints as like the stream starting soon thing whenever I stream. So I just want to get better at art in general. So I do that a lot. Yep.
Good thing to pursue, but definitely better than that AI art crap. So
yeah. And occasionally I do stream my art too. It depends because I do a lot of, funnily enough, I do a lot of drawing when I listen to like shit like you. When I don't have to watch the video, I can just listen to it. That's when I feel like I'm in my element when I draw, so I don't normally stream as much drawing. I usually just play Heroes of the Storm, which I'm looking at your chat. Yes, Heroes of the Storm is still a game. People still play it. It's just not funded anymore, but the game is still completely playable, and it's a thriving community. Oh. But yes.
Interesting. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm not into it myself, but
people,
if you are into Heroes of the Storm,
every 3 streams, people this game still exists. It's not a mod. You can play it through the Blizzard launcher. It's just there's no more updates. It's not being funded, but it's still a very active community.
Sweet. All right. Well, if that interests you, jump over to Dauntless Stark's channel. Is there anything else? I think for the most part during this whole conversation, I'm not going to say we were talking past each other. I do think that we agree on way more than we disagree on. Yeah. I think that the disagreements that we have.
We went in circles a few times there.
A little bit. I think it was a healthy conversation.
Absolutely.
It's a good thing to talk about.
I'm relatively, because not to out myself here, but I'm more of I was a Voshite for a few years.
Yeah, so much.
And then I wanted more of like his esque content because he only releases like 2 videos a day. And when you're drawing something that takes 8 hours, you kind of want more than 2 videos a day to listen to. So I've been branching out to like shit like you, which you do very identical content, which is awesome. It's more shit I can listen to. Whenever I'm farming for something on a game, for a video, or blah blah blah, just in the background. I was super I don't know. It's very it's not to get parasocial here, but it's very feel good and very bubbly to like, as someone who's brand new, basically to the stream. Just like literally, like the moment I asked if you wanted to talk about something was the first time I chatted in stream. That shit was like, oh my god, you know, like it's like super like, I feel, I don't feel like a number here. I don't feel like a username. I feel like a person. So.
Yeah, I try to facilitate that kind of community. I'm glad you feel that way.
Absolutely, and I do had a bunch of examples of people doing good things for their community too. People that have been like threatened and doxxed that normally wouldn't. It would be completely understandable that they wouldn't trust anyone. Completely trusting their fan base and respecting their fan base. You know. I do have examples of, you know, people doing what I think they should be doing, right? It's not all doom and gloom, right? And it would have been a little bit more prevalent if I could do names. Obviously, I'm not going to do names. When we had our little private 1v1 plus a mod or whatever, there were some names, but you know, I have no quorums leaving the names out at all. You know, the only names I used were mainly in a positive light.
Right. Yeah, I completely understand that. When I was referring to our conversation earlier, I left the names out as well, so I get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for the conversation. Like I said, I think it was healthy. So.
Yeah. Thank you too, man.
Yeah. Hopefully, some people hop over to your channel and check you out.
Only if you guys want. No pressure. Absolutely. Right.
Yep.
Anyway.
Well, best of luck to you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
I hope you have a wonderful day too, man. Enjoy.
Alrighty.
That bronze on looks sick, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm pretty proud of it. So thanks.
Yeah. Peace.